Why do 99% of fishermen leave the water at the exact moment the biggest fish are finally ready to strike? It makes absolutely no sense, but we see it happen every single time the weather turns bad. You have probably been told your whole life that when the air gets cold and the wind starts howling, the fish close their mouths and sink to the bottom. Well, what if I told you that everything you know about cold weather fishing is completely backward? Today, we are going to expose a massive myth. I'm going to show you exactly why a sudden, freezing drop in temperature is actually the ultimate trigger for the most violent, aggressive bites you will ever experience. By the end of this video, you will never look at a dark storm cloud the same way again. In fact, you will be praying for the cold. But before we get into the secret biology of a feeding frenzy, I want to hear from you. Have you ever caught a massive trophy fish while shivering in the freezing rain, or do you head for the truck when the wind picks up? Let me know down in the comments. Let us talk about why this topic is so incredibly important for anyone who wants to take fishing seriously. For generations, grandfathers and old-timers have passed down the same tired advice. They say things like, wind from the east, fish bite the least, or they tell you that a sudden chill in the air will give the fish lockjaw. Because of these old traditions, thousands of guys do the exact same thing year after year. They plan their trips around perfect, sunny, comfortable days. When a cold front rolls in and the temperature drops 20 degrees, they pack up their tackle boxes, reel in their lines, and go home to sit on the couch. They prioritize their own comfort over the actual behavior of the fish. This creates a terrible habit. People fail to catch trophy fish because they are only fishing when the conditions are good for the human, not when the conditions are good for the predator. The truth is, the underwater world operates on a completely different set of rules. Comfort means nothing to a hungry bass or a hunting walleye. Survival is the only thing that matters. And to understand survival, we have to understand what a sudden chill really signals to a fish. Picture this exact situation. You are out on your favorite lake. It is early morning, maybe 6 o'clock. The water is perfectly still, looking almost like a giant sheet of glass. You have been casting for 3 solid hours, and the lake feels completely dead. Nothing is biting. Then suddenly the sky turns a dark shade of grey. A sharp, freezing gust of wind hits the back of your neck. The temperature drops 15 degrees in what feels like 10 minutes. What do most guys do in this scenario? They start the engine, pull up the anchor, and head back to the boat ramp to get warm. They think the fishing day is officially over, but if you do that, you are walking away right before the magic happens. This is the exact moment when you need to zip up your jacket and fish harder. The old-timers might tell you to head home when the weather turns sour, but today we are throwing that advice straight into the trash. Staying on the water during a sudden temperature drop is the ultimate test of a true angler. It separates the guys who just want a suntan from the guys who are serious about catching a trophy. Let us break down the great-grandfather myth right now. The old belief is that fish are cold-blooded, so the second the air gets freezing cold, the fish instantly freeze up too. They supposedly become sluggish, slow, and refuse to eat. This is a massive misunderstanding of how nature actually works. Fish do not have a weather app on their phones. They do not watch the local news. They rely entirely on millions of years of pure survival instinct. When a severe cold front hits, their instincts scream a very specific message. That message is to eat right now or risk starving later. They know that a massive storm is going to make feeding very difficult for the next few days. So, instead of going to sleep, they enter a state of absolute panic feeding. They want to pack their stomachs as full as possible before the real awful weather settles in. The sudden drop in temperature is not a stop sign for them. It is actually the ultimate dinner bell. If you can understand this biological trigger, you can intercept them while they are actively hunting everything in sight. The hidden force behind this feeding frenzy is barometric pressure. This is the real secret. Before the temperature plummets, the atmospheric pressure almost always drops significantly. You might just feel the wind picking up, but the fish feel this pressure change deep inside their bodies. Every fish has a specialized organ called a swim bladder, which helps them maintain their balance and depth in the water. When the barometric pressure drops outside, the pressure inside their swim bladder actually decreases. This is a crucial biological detail. A swollen, high-pressure swim bladder pushes against a fish stomach, making them feel full and uncomfortable. But when the pressure drops, that tension is completely released. Suddenly they literally feel empty. They feel physically hungry because the pressure on their digestive tract is gone. It is an instant physical reaction that forces them to look for food. So while you are complaining about the sudden cold wind, the fish below you are suddenly feeling the biggest appetite they have had all week. Imagine being a massive predator for just a second. You are a 10-pound bass or a 40-inch pike. You are sitting near the bottom of a weed bed, just waiting. Suddenly you feel that heavy pressure lift right off your belly. The water above you starts getting rough and choppy from the cold wind. You know from instinct that a heavy weather system is arriving. You know that for the next 3 days, the water might be muddy, cold, and terrible for hunting. What do? You do not go to sleep. You go on a total rampage. You swim out of your hiding spot and start hunting with extreme aggression. This is the biological trigger that turns a lazy fish into a vicious eating machine. They know the window of opportunity is slamming shut very soon. This urgency means they are not going to carefully inspect their food. They are not going to casually sniff your bait. If they see something moving, they are going to completely destroy it. This is why the strikes during a sudden temperature drop are so violent and heavy. Now let us talk about the lateral line advantage. A fish does not just feel the cold water, they feel the entire environment shifting around them. The lateral line is a sensory organ running down the side of their body that detects vibrations and water displacement. When that freezing wind hits the lake, it creates waves, it chops up the surface, it creates an underwater environment full of noise and chaos. Most people think chaos is bad for fishing, but predators actually love it. In calm, clear water, a big smart fish can see your fishing line. They can see the unnatural hooks hanging off your lure. But when the water gets choppy and the sky gets dark from the incoming cold front, their vision is suddenly impaired. They have to rely on their lateral line to hunt. They feel the vibration of your lure pushing through the water, and they attack it purely on instinct. The chaos of the sudden storm gives you the ultimate advantage because it hides all your mistakes. It turns a cautious, educated fish into a blind, aggressive torpedo. Baitfish panic is another massive reason why the bite gets so crazy. We have to look at what the food source is doing. When the surface of the water cools down incredibly fast from a biting wind, the tiny baitfish get shocked. Minnows and shad are very sensitive to sudden surface temperature changes. When that freezing gust hits, the tight, organized schools of baitfish begin to break apart. They get disoriented, they flutter and swim erratically near the surface because they are confused by the sudden drop. Now put yourself in the shoes of a big walleye or bass. You are sitting on a drop-off, looking up. Suddenly you see thousands of confused, panicking baitfish breaking formation. They look like easy, wounded meals just waiting to be eaten. The predators do not even have to work hard. They just rush up and crash into the scattered bait. This panic creates a feeding frenzy that you can easily take advantage of. All you have to do is throw a lure that mimics a dying, confused baitfish right into that choppy water. Let us picture another scene to make this completely clear. You are standing on the deck of your boat. The wind is howling so loud you can barely hear yourself think. You decide to tie on a flashy jerkbait and throw it directly into the freezing wind. The water is getting rougher by the minute. Somewhere below, a giant predator is watching the chaotic surface. He sees the flash of your lure ripping through the water. Because the light is low from the storm clouds and the water is churning, he does not see the plastic or the hooks. He just sees a panicked, struggling meal trying to escape the weather. Bam! He hits it with the force of a freight train. The rod is nearly ripped right out of your freezing hands. This is the reality of fishing the temperature drop. The strikes are not subtle taps, they are absolute explosions. The fish are hitting out of pure anger and desperation. If you were sitting in your warm living room right now, you would never get to experience the sheer violence of this kind of bite. There is also a massive chemical change happening in the water. Let us discuss the oxygen rush. Warm, stagnant water holds significantly less oxygen than cooler, moving water. During a long stretch of nice warm weather, the oxygen levels in a lake can actually slowly drop, making the big fish feel incredibly sluggish and lazy. But when that sudden cold front hits, everything changes. The freezing wind crashes into the surface, violently churning the water. This physical mixing literally pumps huge amounts of fresh oxygen directly into the upper layers of the lake. It is exactly like shooting a massive dose of adrenaline straight into the ecosystem. The sudden burst of oxygen wakes up the lazy giants. It gives them a burst of intense energy. They feel revived, strong, and ready to hunt. So while you might feel cold and tired standing on the shore, the fish are actually feeling more energetic than they have in weeks. You are fishing for athletes that just caught their second wind, not freezing, miserable animals. Understanding why the strikes are so aggressive is key to changing your mindset. They are not just feeding during this time, they are actively competing with each other. In a calm environment, a fish might take its sweet time trailing your lure, inspecting it from every angle before deciding to eat. But during a sudden temperature drop, the feeding window is extremely short, and the fish know it. They are surrounded by other hungry predators who are also feeling the pressure drop. If a big bass sees your crankbait swimming by, he knows he cannot afford to wait. If he hesitates for even 1 second, another fish is going to steal his meal. This intense competition triggers a panic response. They smash your bait simply to kill it before someone else can get to it. This means you do not have to use perfectly realistic, tiny, finesse baits. You can use big, loud, obnoxious lures because the fish are completely ignoring the details. They are reacting purely out of competitive rage and the fear of missing out on a meal. The timeline of the cold front is where most fishermen get completely confused. Timing is absolutely everything. The absolute best time to catch this aggressive bite is the 2 to 3 hours right before the cold air arrives and exactly during the temperature drop itself. This is the golden window. You want to be on the water while the wind is shifting and the thermometer is actively falling. Do not wait for the storm to pass. Do not wait for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, the fish will be completely locked down and suffering from a post-frontal hangover. The magic only happens during the transition. Once the temperature has fully dropped and stabilized at a freezing cold level, the feeding frenzy abruptly ends. The fish retreat to deep cover and refuse to eat for days. This is why you must brave the worst part of the changing weather. You have to intercept them during the chaos of the fall. If you arrive a day late, you will prove the grandfathers right because you will not catch a single thing. We need to deeply analyze the post-frontal hangover because this is exactly where the old myth comes from. The day after a sudden temperature drop, the sky is usually a bright, clear blue. The sun is shining directly down, the wind has completely died, and the air is crisp and very cold. To a human, this looks like a beautiful, refreshing day to go fishing. But underwater, it is an absolute nightmare. The barometric pressure has skyrocketed to a massive high. The water is incredibly bright because there are no clouds. The fish have stuffed their stomachs the day before during the sudden drop, and now they are digesting their massive meals deep in the thickest weeds they can find. They are full, they are uncomfortable from the high pressure, and the bright sun hurts their eyes without sunglasses. They will not bite anything. Fishermen go out on this clear blue day, fail to catch fish, and blame the cold air. They confuse the sudden drop with the miserable aftermath. Do not make this exact same mistake. Adapting your gear during the temperature drop is a huge part of the puzzle. When the wind is howling and the clouds are dark, you need to put away your slow, quiet lures. You want lures that move huge amounts of water, make a ton of noise, and flash brightly. This is the time to tie on a giant heavy spinnerbait with massive willow blades, bring out the loud, rattling chatterbaits, use aggressive jerkbaits that slash violently from side to side. The fish are looking for a noisy fight, so you need to give them one, because the water surface is rough and the light is terrible. A quiet little plastic worm on the bottom is just going to get totally ignored. The predators are using their lateral lines to hunt, remember? Your lure needs to send out massive vibration waves to help the fish locate it in the dark, turbulent water. Do not be afraid to upsize your baits. The fish are looking for one massive meal to sustain them through the upcoming cold days, not a tiny little snack. Let us talk about fishing speed, because this is where a lot of guys totally fail. When a human feels cold air, their natural reaction is to slow down, shrink up, and move carefully. A lot of fishermen unconsciously project this feeling onto the fish. They start reeling their baits extremely slowly, thinking the fish is suddenly frozen. This is completely wrong. During the sudden temperature drop, you actually need to speed up, burn your crankbaits through the water, retrieve your spinnerbaits faster, cover as much water as humanly possible. The fish are currently active hunters patrolling the weed edges. They are not waiting in ambush, they are actively swimming and looking for trouble. By speeding up your presentation, you trigger their chase instinct. You make your lure look like a terrified baitfish running for its life from the changing weather. Fast-moving baits force the fish to make a split-second decision, which almost always results in a violently aggressive reaction strike. Picture another real-life situation on the water. You are fishing with a buddy who does not understand this concept. He is freezing cold, constantly blowing on his hands and complaining about the wind. Because he thinks the fish are sluggish, he is dragging a small rubber worm across the bottom at a painfully slow speed. Meanwhile, you are standing on the front deck, ignoring the cold, and burning a loud, rattling crankbait through the exact same area. Within 20 minutes, you catch 3 massive bass that nearly swallow your lure whole. Your buddy gets totally skunked and cannot understand why. The reason is simple. You matched the aggressive energy of the weather, and he surrendered to the cold. You gave the fish exactly what they were looking for, which was a fast, fleeing target in the middle of a chaotic environment. Mindset and technique have to match the conditions. You cannot fish a heavy storm the same way you fish a quiet, sunny Sunday morning. The location shift is another critical detail you must pay attention to. As the temperature drops and the wind picks up, the entire food chain gets forcefully moved. Plankton and microscopic food get pushed by the wind currents directly against the shoreline. Where the plankton goes, the tiny baitfish must follow, and where the baitfish go, the giant predators are right behind them. During a sudden weather change, you need to focus all your effort on the windblown shorelines. Yes, it is much harder to cast directly into the teeth of a freezing wind. Yes, your boat will get knocked around by the crashing waves, but this is exactly where the dinner table has been set. The big predators are using the wind to trap their food against the bank. If you hide on the calm, protected side of the lake where casting is easy, you are fishing in completely dead water. You have to go to where the crashing waves are churning up mud and trapping the bait. That is where the monsters are currently feeding. There is also a fascinating big fish theory tied to this specific weather event. Smaller, younger fish are often very easily spooked by sudden environmental changes. When the water turns turbulent and the sky gets dark, a lot of the smaller bass or walleye might actually dive deep and hide in fear. But the oldest, smartest, and largest fish in the lake operate differently. These giant trophies have lived through dozens of storms. They know exactly what this sudden drop means. They know this is their absolute best chance to get a massive, chaotic meal without expending too much energy tracking down fast, healthy prey. Because the smaller, annoying fish have gotten out of the way, the big predators completely take over the shallow hunting grounds. This is why the guys who stay out during a nasty cold front often report catching their personal best records. You are no longer sorting through the small fry. You are fishing exclusively for the kings and queens of the lake. Do not let the weather dictate your comfort over your actual fishing success. This requires serious mental toughness. The worst weather for the fisherman is very often the absolute best weather for the fish. If you want to exploit this sudden temperature drop, you need to prepare yourself properly. Dress in heavy layers, wear totally waterproof gear. Keep your core completely warm so your mind can stay entirely focused on your fishing rod, not on your shivering shoulders. If you are constantly thinking about how miserable you are, you will miss the subtle signs of a following fish, and you will get sloppy with your casting. You have to embrace the terrible conditions. Tell yourself that every freezing gust of wind is just another dinner bell ringing underwater. When you finally land a 10-pound monster in the middle of a freezing squall, you will not even feel the cold anymore. The adrenaline of the catch will keep you warm enough to keep casting until your arms fall off. Let us bust one more critical scientific myth about the cooling process. People think that when the air temperature drops 20 degrees in an hour, the water instantly becomes freezing cold too. This is physically impossible. Water has an incredibly high specific heat capacity. It takes a massive amount of time and energy to actually cool down a huge body of water. While you are freezing on the deck of the boat in the frigid air, the core temperature of the water below you is still relatively warm from the previous days of good weather. Only the very top layer gets slightly chilled by the wind. The fish are not actually swimming in freezing water yet. They are swimming in comfortable water, but they can sense the cold front pushing down on the surface. They know the total freeze is coming eventually, but right at that moment their bodies are perfectly warm and fully capable of explosive speeds. You are freezing. The fish are totally fine. Remember that the next time you think about quitting early. Finally, we have to look at the psychology of the strike itself. During a sudden temperature drop, a strike is very rarely a gentle feeding tap. It is a violent panic response. It is what we call a pure reaction strike. The fish might not even be incredibly hungry at that exact second, but the dropping pressure makes them irritable, aggressive, and incredibly prone to lashing out. When you rip a loud flashing lure past the face of an irritable, heavily pressured base during a chaotic storm, it does not eat it because it wants a snack. It eats it because it wants to destroy the annoying thing in its territory. They hit your lure out of pure predatory instinct, knowing the window of opportunity for easy hunting is slamming completely shut. This is why you must never use soft, gentle movements. Force the fish to react, make them angry. Give them a target they cannot resist attacking before the storm completely ruins the water conditions. So the very next time you are on the water and you feel that sudden chill in the air, do not look at your watch and decide it is time to go. When you see those dark clouds rolling in over the trees, do not reach for the ignition key. Instead, reach down and tighten your drag. Tie on the loudest, most aggressive lure in your tackle box. Make your absolute longest cast directly into the face of the howling wind. The monster fish you have been waiting your entire life to catch is waking up right at this very second. The temperature drop is not the end of your fishing trip. It is the real beginning. Embrace the bad weather, trust the biology of the fish, and stay on the water when everyone else is running away. If you follow this strategy, you will start catching the kind of fish that the comfortable sunny day fisherman can only ever dream about. You just have to be tough enough to weather the sudden storm. Let us quickly wrap up everything we have just discovered. We have totally shattered the old grandfather myth that cold wind immediately ruins the fishing. You now know that the sudden temperature drop, combined with a sharp decrease in barometric pressure, is the ultimate biological trigger for big predators. It relieves the pressure on their swim bladders, makes them feel instantly hungry, and forces them into a frantic feeding frenzy before the real bad weather locks them down. The most mind-blowing turn of events is that the absolute worst weather for your personal comfort is actually the greatest hunting condition for the biggest fish in the lake. By ignoring your freezing hands and throwing loud, fast-moving lures directly into the wind, you shift your entire approach from a casual hobbyist to a dedicated trophy hunting angler. You will never again leave the water when the dinner bell rings. Thank you so much for watching and braving the elements with us today. If this video completely changed the way you look at storm clouds, please hit that subscribe button, leave a huge like, and share it with a fishing buddy who always wants to go home early. Now, I want to ask you a question to get the debate going down below. Do you think fish strike during a cold front out of pure hunger or just pure anger? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you out on the water.